When a Space Marine chapter is founded, sometimes it is made with a specific goal in mind. It may be security, bolstering a region or guarding against a recently defended threat, but some chapters seem to have a darker purpose. Such is the case with the chapter we shall explore today, successors of a chapter that most no one actually knows exists. Hailing back to one of the most mysterious foundings of all time, it was an experiment to create the next generation of warriors to fight the denizens of the warp. Though this experiment was seemingly an isolated case with no known follow-ups, the chapter spawned from it remains today, fighting both demonic and other foes across the Imperium. Hailing from the feral world of Banish in an isolated part of Segmentum Obscurus, they are known simply as the Exorcists. This is Tactica Imperialis, and welcome to 40k Stories. Though we lack exact dates, the Exorcists are known to have been part of the 13th founding. This founding has almost been entirely forgotten, as the Imperium doesn't even know which chapters come from it, though it is speculated that the Raven Guard successor, the Death Spectres, hail from it too. In fact, the 13th founding is the only one that the Adeptus Terra does not possess the original gene stocks for, contributing to its nickname of the Dark Founding, but there is good reason why it is this way. The Exorcists are created from the gene seed of none other than the Grey Knights, the chamber militants of the Ordo Malleus and the greatest demon hunters in the Imperium. Quite why a chapter who murders or mind wipes everyone who encounters them creates a successor that operates publicly is something of a mystery, but there we go, it happened. The Exorcists were an experiment designed to create a new breed of demon hunters. Rather than relying on the psychic power of the Grey Knights, a radically different tack was taken. Assumedly after their ascension to full Astartes, the Exorcist members were subjected to what is known as demonic possession therapy, which, yes, is exactly what it sounds like. A minor warp entity was used to possess the Astartes, which was then cast out about 12 hours later by a member of the Ordo Malleus. Yeah, you did hear that right. They were possessed by minor demons to become better demon hunters. Right. The theory, or at the very least the result, was that assuming the Astartes survived the process without going utterly nuts, their soul would be invisible to all but the strongest demons. Amazingly enough, the majority of the exercise Space Marines did not require putting down for reasons of insanity or mutation, though some surgery was actually required to fix a few things up afterwards. Nothing major though. These survivors had only a 1% chance back then of falling to possession and corruption again, and it may well be that this error has since been reduced or even eliminated over the millennia since the 13th founding. As mentioned, they are basically invisible to all things demonic, though it is believed to be because they're not susceptible to corruption and are completely pure. Only the strongest warp entities can detect them, which makes them extremely dangerous to all but said entities just because they're impossible to see. How do you hit what you can't see as a basic principle? Interestingly, this invisibility or detection issue is not limited to demons, as psykers and other individuals like them also cannot trace the soul or warp signature of an exorcist easily. We know this because a librarian on a Death Watch kill team was able to notice the anomaly, sensing the extremely faint warp signature for the exorcist on his team. Said team member, codenamed Watcher, also showed incredible resistance to psychic power, able to shrug off an Orc Weird Boy's attack that would have killed most. You might have been forgiven if you didn't know that they were actually blanks, but not quite. It's similar, but no. In order to test their new creations once they'd been patched up, the Ordo Malleus and Grey Knights threw them somewhat in at the deep end. After training in the art of fighting demons along with some other education around the topic, the Exorcists landed on a demon world north of the Eye of Terror, though its name is not recorded. Though the Grey Knights had a squad in reserve to act as cleanup duty, they were hardly needed either to kill demons or put down their gene sons. The Exorcists had a kill ratio of almost 100 to 1. Combine that 1% failure rate into the calculation, and you can see that assuming the whole chapter was present in typical full codex strength, about 100,000 demons could be banished by the Exorcists before the Astartes went down. Obviously impressed with the work of the scientists, the Grey Knights at that point have seemingly left their successor to it, as records do not indicate the pair working together often if at all to my knowledge. As for the Exorcists themselves, they just got on with doing their thing, fighting both demons and the other enemies of the Imperium. Either the chapter's apothecaries, librarians, chaplains, etc. were taught the art of demonic possession therapy to ensure that new recruits keep coming, or a permanent detachment of demon hunters and the like was sent to their chosen homeworld. Their homeworld was, very originally for a chapter of demon fighting specialists, given the name of Banish. Located somewhere called the Narasima Straits in Segmentum Obscurus, it is a feral world in an isolated sector that helps to keep the Exorcists somewhat hidden. Obviously, they're not Grey Knights level of secretive, they do officially exist in the annals of the Imperium after all, but it seems as though the nature and role of the Exorcists is somewhat mysterious for those outside their ranks. Their fortress monastery on Banish, the Basilica Malefax, is probably one of the more fortified, even against other buildings like it. I mean, all fortress monasteries are tough to crack, but the Exorcist one contains vast amounts of occult lore to go along with it. Not on the level of some of the places on Titan, since only the purest of the purest Grey Knights can guard those, but still, it would be exceptionally dangerous if unleashed, I would wager, so they definitely want to keep them safe. Presumably to help them blend into the ranks of the Adeptus Astartes, the Exorcists are, broadly speaking, a Codex-compliant chapter. The main 9 companies of full Astartes are completely normal, at least in terms of structure and roles on the battlefield to our knowledge. But it's in the Scout Company that things get a little bit weird. Actually, in truth, I should say Scout Companies. Yes, the Exorcists have more than one Scout Company. They actually have 3. The reason for this is simple, and possibly is quite telling about the success rate of demonic possession therapy. If the Exorcists only had the one Scout Company, then they would go extinct, simply because the number of recruits raised to Astartes would be less than the amount dying in combats across the galaxy. I don't want to say with any certainty that it's solely the possession therapy that's causing this deficiency, as their training methods are also said to be somewhat unconventional, but it has to be a part of the reason. I mean, no other chapter has more than one Scout Company that I can think of. We can also deduce from this that the population of their homeworld Banish is likely quite large, or they recruit from all over the place, just to keep up with the stringent recruitment and harsh training that becoming a Space Marine and a Demon Hunter is likely to entail. Assuming you make it through your time in the Scout Company though, things should progress kind of as normal from there. The only other structural quirk within the Exorcist seems to be an off-the-battlefield type of thing, as opposed to something solely in combat. These are the Orisons, drawn from an ancient Terran word meaning prayer, which I can only really describe as cults within the chapter, with different specialisms in study and or combat. For example, the Orison known as the Obelisk Thelamus is home to many of the Devastators and Tech Marines, whilst many librarians are in the Orison known as the Broken Tower. However, not everyone is a member of an Orison, as being a member is regarded in the Exorcists. Given they all have their own specialisms, collate books of lore within their own ranks, am I the only one who sees some odd little parallels with the prospering cults of the ancient Thousand Suns? Just me? Fine. The first company, and thus the veterans of the chapter, are part of an Orison known as the Enochian Guard, the elite demon slayers whose membership necessitates slaying a demon in combat. The fact that it's broadly equivalent to the first company makes me think the Exorcists really don't fight demons a lot, which is odd given their origins, but maybe unsurprising given they're not exactly the Grey Knights and can't just be called in whenever demons show up. After all, if they did that, then their nature would be revealed, questions get asked, problems. If you're wondering about the name, it goes back to the founding of the Exorcist and the mysterious original chapter master, Enoch Trismegistus. Sadly, aside from the name, we know nothing about the guy. Part of me would think he might have been a Grey Knight, but I can't back that up, and I'd not be surprised if he wasn't, because that leads to having a psychic chapter master, and I think the Blood Ravens are about the only ones who do that these days. Whilst their history is exceptionally cloudy, perhaps unsurprisingly given their shadowy origins, we do know a few famous engagements for the Exorcists. Despite their age, aside from their test run, the first known battle for the chapter comes in mid-M40 as part of a 7-year engagement known as the Ashen War. Joined by the practically unknown chapter The Dark Hands, forces from Necromunda and the Adeptus Sororitas, more than a third of the chapter was committed to the war that centered on the cardinal world of Dimmermar, that was the home of Sebastian Thor, hero of the Age of Apostasy, in case the name sounded familiar. Embroiled in a 3-way conflict with both orcs and the forces of chaos, the focus of the war quickly turned to defeating a demon prince known as the Horned God that was the overall commander of the traitors. Eventually, the Exorcists managed to track it to the dead world Belfargo before launching their final assault, despite the Horned God having thousands of cultists and a Night Lord's warband standing in the way of the Astartes. Unperturbed, the Exorcists pressed on with the Ordo Malleus at their side, but it was heavy going with many losses. Though we do not know truly how many were on Belfargo, a third of the entire chapter lay dead on it by the battle's end. That said, they did win out, managing to banish the Horned God and causing many of its followers to die along with the Demon Prince. The orcs in the subsector were mopped up within a year, making me think they weren't that much of a threat to begin with given how much was lost down Belfargo, and the region lapsed back to Imperial control soon after, much I'm sure to the Ecclesiarchy's relief. The Exorcists next appear in history over a millennium later, committing 5 companies plus members of the Enochian Guard to the massive secession known as the Badab War. It does not appear that they were part of the first Imperial forces to arrive in the Badab sector during the attempted secession of the future Huron Blackheart, instead noting as arriving in 908 M41, 4 years after the war truly broke out and 7 after hostilities first started to brew. Originally planned to work with the Sons of Medusa chapter against heretic forces, the Exorcists were pulled away due to arguments with their allies and instead assigned to a different, larger force. This meant that the Exorcists joined the Sagan offensive led by the Red Scorpions and the Fire Angels, a heavy campaign that was ultimately successful and pretty much separated the 2 largest secessionist groups of the Astral Claws and the Mantis Warriors. The 9th company of the chapter are known to have fought on a world called Shavra, whilst the 3rd took part in a battle called the Hallows Point Incursion, but unfortunately we lack dates and details for both of those engagements, though if there were demons around our success, I would suspect the Exorcists had a field day. Though not involved in the final battle in the war, the fall of Badab itself in 9, 12 or 13 M41, the Exorcists played a key role in taking and defending the larger system. It was their boarding action alongside the Sons of Medusa, with whom they seem to have patched up relations after their earlier disagreements that we mentioned, that broke the Ring of Steel, the star fort over Badab 6 that basically functioned as the heart of the system's defences. With that taken, the Exorcists were actually held back from the invasion of Badab Primaris, joining the other Imperial AV elements to blockade the system and prevent secessionists from escaping. Technically they would fail in this, as of course Huron would get away, but likely they did shoot a lot of traitors down, and potentially some loyalists too who were trying to get off the broken planet in traitor transports. Yeah, thanks Carcharodons. It would be a further 60 years after this until elements of the Exorcists would next appear, with their second company being called in to aid Malleus Inquisitor Torquemada Cotias on the planet of Opridia. Cotias was leading a mass exorcism and banishing of the demons on the planet, including a demon prince known as Carpathy the Occludor. But it is said that much of his success, which included the destruction of over 1 million demon hosts, being owed to the Exorcists and their unique training/knowledge known as the rites of detestation. It is also said that the rites enacted by the members of the Broken Tower, I assume, are unique to the Exorcists. It sounds as though not even the Grey Knights seem to know them, oddly enough. There we go, that might just be a bit of information that got mistranslated. We can also confirm the presence of the Exorcists in 2 major war zones in the closing stages of M41. The entire chapter, yes, all 12 companies, was committed to the Third War of Armageddon, but as so many battles were fought in that titanic conflict, pinning down dates and locations is basically impossible. However, they did not stay for long, it seems, as within a year the bulk of the chapter was actually elsewhere. Records state that 10 companies of the Exorcists were committed to the 13th Black Crusade, though as with Armageddon 3, the battles they fought and their performances within them are lost to time, so they weren't on Cadia when it fell and weren't on the group that went to Ultramar, at least. Given their specialisms, I suspect they've been exceptionally busy following the appearance of the Cicatrix Maledictum, but like their primogenitor the Grey Knights, we have very few if not any records of their deeds in the Noctis Aeterna. With Banish quite likely being an Imperium Nihilus due to being a Segmentum Obscurus, which is nicely cut by the Cicatrix, it may just be that details have yet to get back to the wider Imperium, but they are believed to have received reinforcement from the Primaris Space Marines, though exactly whose gene seed was used to make them and how the Primaris have reacted to possession therapy, that remains unknown. It may well have been that Belisarius Corps was involved in the 13th founding. We have no idea, to be honest. So end the tales of the Exorcists. Unfortunately, details are lacking on this mysterious successor of the Grey Knights, but their mere existence is intriguing in itself. Part of me surprised that there aren't more chapters like them specialised in fighting demons, even if they can't share the heritage of the Grey Knights, but given the risks involved, perhaps I shouldn't be that shocked. Then again, if it went so well, why didn't the Inquisition try it again? Maybe we'll never know. Either way, the Exorcists are a dangerous force on the battlefield, even if they aren't against their specialised enemy. Now, it is time to explore the next in our Champions of Humanity mini-series. I want to explore a pair of champions next time, as well as exploring the history of the unique forces they represent. Details for these two are somewhat lacking relative to some of the other champions, but as I couldn't cover all the history of their organisations in the relevant Legions log, this seems as good a time as any. For now though, thank you for watching Tactica Imperialis, and I'll see you all again. Goodbye.